What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Marriage and Medicine.
This week is a little bit different. We're going to be talking about race because I don't know if you've noticed, there are not many Black doctors in medicine at all. So I wanted to share some statistics first before we talk about what our experiences have been like and just sharing from TJ's point of view what it's like for him as a physician. But these are statistics from the Association of American Medical Colleges, which I don't even know what that is. I guess
it's just like a standard stuff for medicine, basically.
And these are they call it Diversity in Medicine Facts and Figures. So I guess every year or every other year, they pull numbers in regards to diversity. So these were the statistics that I found and was kind of like a little shocking to me. So the first one, these are from 2019, by the way. It says 5% of active physicians in 2018 were Black. So if you need a little bit more of a understanding, there were 56.2% that are white, 17.1% were Asian, and 13.7% were considered unknown. In 2018, 1,047 Black male doctors were practicing in emergency medicine, so just that one specialty alone. If you're looking at just emergency medicine, 22,024 were white male doctors, 3,406 were considered unknown, and 2,783 were Asian. So that's just within emergency medicine itself. As far as medical school, when you look at the faculty members, the people that teach medical students, only 3.6% of those faculty members were Black, and this was in 2018. 63.9% of them are white, 9.2% are Asian, and all others, their estimate was close to the Black percentage, that 3.6%. In 2018 to 2019, talking about medical school and applying for that, only 8.4% of the applicants were Black, 46.8% were white, and 21.3% were Asian. When it came to those that were accepted in medical school, same time frame, only 7.1% were Black, 49.8% were white, 22% were Asian, and then 6.2% were Hispanic, Latino, or of some Spanish origin. And then finally, when it comes to medical school in the 2018 to 2019 academic year, Black medical students tend to have the highest or close to the highest amount of pre-medical education debt. So that is debt that you accrue before you get to medical school, like undergrad, college time frame. When it came to those that had no debt, Black people ranked the lowest behind non-US citizens, Asians, or white. Those were the ones that tend to have no debt. And then in 2018 to 2019, again, only 6.2% of medical school graduates in the US were Black, 54.6 were white, 21.6 were Asian, and the rest were similar proximity to the Black estimate of 6.2%. So that's a lot. Like when I was reading it, like that was only 2 years ago that all of those estimates and numbers were pulled. And when you're looking at that, like, I don't know, that should be like mind blowing that there's such a small percentage of Black medical students that even apply, for people that graduate, for like Black people in general have the most debt when it comes to pursuing becoming a doctor over white or Asian people. And it's just like, I don't know. So I wanted to ask you, why do you think, because obviously when you go to the doctor, like, you rarely see Black physicians there. So I wanted to see from your standpoint, why do you think there aren't many Black physicians, or why do you think Black people in general just don't pursue becoming a doctor? Because I have my thoughts, but I'll let you share first what you think.
So first off, just to put some of those numbers into perspective, I mean, you think about the actual population of the United States itself, it's predominantly white. Of course, it's about 60% white, 12%, give or take, African American, and I think 17% Hispanic in those situations. So you think about the ideal healthcare system kind of as a whole in terms of diversity. You want the medical community to basically mirror the actual United States population. So with there being 12% African American, you would expect at least at a minimum 12% of African Americans that are actual physicians in this situation. So going from 5% to 12%, there's already a 7% gap there. That's a significant amount when you're talking about the entire United States population as well as the entire kind of medical community itself. So in terms of why I think that is this way, I think first off it's exposure. Again, when you're a little kid going to the doctor, you're seeing people that don't look like you. So you're like, oh, I don't know if this is something that I can do. Versus when you look on the TV, you see all the actors, you see all the athletes, you're like, oh, they all look like me. This is kind of my route. I think that I could do this. Because again, you're seeing that and you see that you can possibly mirror that kind of success from that standpoint. But without being able to see actual people that look like you within the medical community, you don't really gain any interest into it. Me personally, the way that I was exposed to it was my mom was a nurse. So she always kind of had medical stories for me and those kind of things, which was always interesting. And then come high school, I kind of got in touch with an orthopedic surgeon who I had the opportunity to shadow. And from then on, that's just what I wanted to do. So I think ultimately it's exposure. We really have to do a better job of getting to the point where we're getting younger individuals exposed to it so that they can have career aspirations for something other than being an athlete or being a musician or those kind of things. And that goes for other fields as well. I mean, where you're talking about being a lawyer, being a veterinarian, being just different things from those standpoints. It kind of goes across all those spans. But I think that's kind of one thing that kind of essentially hinders the situation altogether.
Yeah, I was going to say that one for sure because when I was a teacher, I taught at a predominantly African American school, and it was also a Title I school, which means basically most of the student population comes from low-income families. And so that was something like we always had career day and talk about what we want to be when we grow up. And those were always the things that they said, is that they wanted to be some kind of an athlete, basketball or football, or some kind of a musician, that like a rapper or a singer or whatever, some other form of celebrity, whether it's like a movie star or I don't know what else there is outside of that. Sometimes you get people that say like, oh, I want to be a teacher, or I want to be a dancer, or
police officer, or just firefighter,
but
things like that.
Most of the time, they wanted to be an athlete or a musician or some kind of a celebrity. There was never like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be like things that, I don't want to say require more education, but they do kind of require more education. I think also another reason is that if somebody say was considering it, what will hinder them from doing it is the investment aspect of it, like the time investment and the money investment. Because just going to college itself is expensive, but going to medical school to become a doctor is like
it's rough.
way more expensive. I almost feel like, I guess depending on where you go, but I feel like it's almost like 3 times the amount that it costs to just go to college. And then when you think about it, to become a doctor, you have to go through 4 years of college, then you have to go through 4 years of medical school, then you have to go through a minimum of 3 years of residency, and then you might have a fellowship that you have to do. So if you look at all of that, that's like at least 10, 11 years that you have to invest putting in, like studying, getting better, before you finally get to reap the full benefit of being a doctor, before you get your full pay and like, you know, can practice on your own and all of that. So I feel like people see that and they feel like, you know, I don't want to have to give up 10, 11 years just to be a doctor. I want to have something that can be done faster than that. And then the money aspect of it, like, I don't want to say all Black people come from low-income families, because that's obviously not true, but when you do come from a low-income family, and you think about the path to becoming a doctor and the debt that you have to accrue, that just doesn't feel possible for you. That makes it feel like it's even harder. Like when you already have nothing to, I don't know, have to add all of that in. It's just like, it almost feels like it's not worth it when you can, oh, I can become a rapper in like 2 years and start making money faster versus having to wait 11 years to finally get the payoff from all of that work. So that's kind of my personal thought on maybe why there's no, I don't want to say no, but why there's so few Black physicians out there.
Right. Going along the financial aspect, I mean, you think about how much medical school costs. A lot of medical schools nowadays can cost up to $40,000 just tuition alone per year, which is insane. I was lucky to go to kind of an in-state school that tuition ranged between $18,000 to $22,000 a year, which in terms of medical school, that's nothing. Essentially, you come out with a lot less debt than the majority of individuals.
Now, I don't think TJ would ever share this story, but I remember when he was in medical school. I don't know if we were married yet or not, but we were in different states at the time, and he had like a conference, I think it was, that you had to go to, and he had to...
Down in Florida, Buena Vista.
Yeah, you had to go to a conference and do like this presentation, and he wasn't the only one. Like there was a ton of presenters that were going to be there. And so I remember he had went the day before, and he was going to wherever they were going to have the conference at. He was wanting to go to set up like his table or something like that. And I remember he had told me that he went to, I guess, the conference room to go set up the night before, and the guy was there, I guess a security person or something, I don't know. But he was there, and he was like, what are you doing here? And TJ tried to tell him like, hey, I'm one of the presenters for the conference. You know, I was coming to set up and get, you know, my setup right and all that stuff.
Had my badge on and everything. I mean, he clearly saw the badge.
And so he was just like, he just didn't believe him. He's just like, well, why are you here? Like, what are you doing here? And he's like, just kept trying to explain, like, I'm here for this conference. I needed to set up, you know, get prepared, all that stuff. And he would just wouldn't let him in for whatever reason. He didn't believe that that was what he was there for, and that was like what he was trying to do. He just was like, wouldn't let him in for whatever reason. And I think there was like a faculty member that happened to have seen you at the time, and he was like, oh, hey, TJ, come on, you know, we're in here, we're setting up. And then the guy was like,
oh yeah, okay, I guess you can go through.
Like, then had the moment like, oh, okay, because someone else spoke up for you and can prove that you were supposed to be here, now you can go. And I think that was like the first experience you had with, I guess, racial profiling or maybe racial stereotyping.
Within medicine, at least. But outside of medicine, there's still plenty of stories there. But,
well, yeah. But that was the first experience you had. I remember you telling me about it because I got so angry, like, really? Like, he had his badge on, he's dressed up, he didn't look like suspicious or anything like that. He had his stuff like with him in his hands. Like, it just didn't make sense. And so it made me angry. But unfortunately, I think that was like, I don't know, 2017 when that happened.
Something like that.
But that's, unfortunately, when it comes to Black people in general, that's can be a reality. Like, there is a book I read by Dr. Tweedy. He's a Black physician as well. And it's called Black Man in a White Coat. And he shared a story at the very beginning of the book where he was in medical school at Duke.
I think it was Duke. I would have to double check.
I think it was Duke.
Yeah.
But he was in medical school, and this was like, I don't even know how long ago. But he was in medical school in class. They were doing like their lecture or whatever, and they decided to take a break so all the students could like get up, move around, go to the bathroom, whatever. So he left the room to go take a break for a minute, and he said when he came in, his professor was walked up to him and was like, oh, are you here to fix the lights? And he's like, what? Am I here to fix the lights? He's like, yeah, the lights, they're broken, those ones back there, you're here to fix those, right? And he's like, no, kind of like confused. And he's like, well, why are you here? And he's like, I'm in your class, like I'm in medical school. I was literally just here when you did the lecture. And the guy just goes, oh, and walks away. Like, he didn't apologize. No, like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Like, I feel so bad. That was so, like, rude of me. Anything. He just, walks off. And then Dr. Tweedy was just saying how that experience, the rest of the class, like, he couldn't even focus on what was being taught because all he could think of in the back of his mind was that instance that, like, just made him feel profiled that, oh, well, you shouldn't even be here, or you don't even deserve to be here just because he was Black.
Yeah, there's so many just kind of passive aggressive type of things that occur. Unfortunately, within medicine, that's why, I mean, the ultimate goal is to get more representation. The more representation that we have within medicine, hopefully, the less these events kind of occur, but there's really just a systemic issue that really just needs a lot of attention and a lot of assistance in order to kind of make this situation better altogether, just throughout the entire world, not even just talking about within medicine, just in general. But those are kind of some of our thoughts about race in medicine and some of our experiences from that standpoint. If you have any thoughts, any comments, please feel free to leave them below so that we can also continue the discussion, essentially. But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next show.